In the last lecture, you learned that in React 16, you can actually return adjacent elements in some circumstances. For one of these circumstances, props children, we created this auxiliary component, and I told you that it's a higher order component. Called like this because all it does is it basically wraps another component, doesn't really do much else, but does something with that wrapping component. In this case, simply output it with props children so that we can use this advantage or take advantage of this new feature of React 16. Now, you can also create higher order components, and by the way, you will often use some when using third-party packages that add a certain logic to a component. Some logic you might need in multiple components and which you don't want to write into each of them. For example, share a logged in user. You will see some higher order components throughout this course. Let's add one for our demo project here though. For the person.js component, we wrap it in a div with classes person as a class name. In app.js, we do the same, a div with classes app. It would be cool if we could use a higher order component which does that. Now, there are actually two approaches we could take. I'll show both. The first one is the maybe with class JS file, which is a constant with class equal to a function, of course, where all we do is we return some JSX where we have this wrapping div. And there we might set up class name, receive props classes, this is the expectation of this component, and then output props children in between. Next, we of course need to import React from React because this will be transformed to React create element, and then export default with class. Now we can use the with class wrapper here, for example, in the app.js file. Let's quickly import it. Let's import with class from up one level, HOC with class. And now let's wrap it. So let's wrap our component with the with class component. Here we now have with class and close with class. So we replace the div with it. And as we configured with class, we expect to get classes as a property. So we should pass this. Props children, of course, is the part we pass between the opening and closing tags, so this part. But we need the classes property, and this should, of course, be classes app. So we basically replace the div, which has class name, with class, which has classes. So we saved a few characters, which we then spent instead of the div. Still, it's a nice example for one possible higher order component. It doesn't do anything than wrap the content in a div and assign this CSS class. If we now save this, get the same styling and behavior as before with classes. And of course, we can also add this to person, where we have the same behavior, a wrapping div. So let's quickly do this. Let's import with class here too. Let's go up a couple of levels until we reach the top level, go to HOC, import with class. And then again, as before in the app.js file, replace this div here with class and class name now with classes because this is the property with class expects. And now with that, if we reload this, get the same styling as before with our custom higher order component.